Hello everyone, so it's hop testing time again, and today we are going to be looking at Lubelski. Okay, first of all, shout out to the malt miller, especially Stiffo and Reiki. Stiffo for supplying me with these hops and actually the full beer kit to brew this beer with after I gave them the recipe. You can buy that recipe kit over at the malt miller, so I'll put a link to that in the description. If you fancy having a go at this beer, go and check it out. I'll tell you more about the recipe and so on in a minute. And thanks to Reiki for suggesting that I use these hops in a version of my Smells Lagery beer to give them a test run. So, Lubelski, what do we know about them? Well, they're kind of new-ish to the homebrew market, I guess, in a way, although actually I think you've probably been able to get hold of them for quite some time, but they've been, I guess, marketed more towards homebrewers recently. They are, in fact, a hop that's been around for a long time, and these are a very traditional Polish hop, which is used in a lot of Polish lagers and other beers that they make over there. So this is a landrace variety which originates from cultivars of the Saazer variety that have been planted in Poland. So there's a little bit to unpack there in terms of what a landrace variety actually is. Essentially, that means that it's a variety which has kind of naturally developed over time through open pollination amongst the plants that have been grown in the fields. So although it was Saazer plants that were originally taken to Poland, i.e. it's a Saazer cultivar, over time those have interbred and developed into their own kind of landrace variety, in this case Lubelski, which is associated with that region of hop growing. So yeah, that's what that means. They are generally regarded as a good substitute for Saazer for obvious reasons, because that's where their heritage directly comes from. And there's a bit of talk about them being used more by commercial breweries because of issues that are ongoing with, you know, Saazer harvest levels and the alpha acids and various other things. So I'm not going to spend ages breaking down the recipe for this one because it is essentially the Smells Lager recipe. There's a whole video on that, and I've published that recipe before. I will publish the version that I've done for this. There's a couple of minor changes. So I've just brought the ABV down a touch to 5%. The IBU's a touch in line with that. Hopping wise, there's no dry hop on this, as with the original recipe. I have increased the Whirlpool edition to 30 grams rather than 20, just to make use of the full 100 grams within the batch. And I've not included a dry hop because I think, although I've done that with previous kind of lager hop testers, where it's a traditional variety like this, which in most recipes you're probably not going to be dry hopping with, I think it makes more sense to just use it in the boil. And, you know, aroma addition's fine for whirlpooling and late additions and so on, but dry hopping is not going to be that typical with your traditional lager recipes, so probably not going to do it as much with a traditional lager hop. So I'll just put the details for the recipe up on the screen rather than reading through them all, as I said, and I'll get into this bag of hops and see what we've got on the nose. Based on their Saazer heritage, you would expect to get lots of herbal notes off of this, maybe some spicy aromas, things like that. There are a few other descriptors which are named on, you know, various websites and the Polish hop company website itself, including a few things that are a little bit more exotic, like I think there was some bergamot and cinnamon named on there, but that's probably going to be something you're more likely to get in the flavour after you've brewed with it, I would imagine, rather than on the nose straight out of the pack. So very much just noble hop aroma on those. They are fairly pungent for noble hops, mostly herbal, spicy, grassy, maybe a little bit of a lemony thing going on there, which is certainly something that some people will associate with Saazer. Yeah, there's a little bit more of a kind of floral note in there as well once you've given them a bit of a rub in the hands, but it's predominantly herbal, kind of spicy, traditional noble hop kind of aromas in there, and they smell really good. So looking forward to seeing what these do in this beer. Let's get into brewing it. So here we have the finished product. It's tasting time. As you can probably tell, a fair bit of time has passed with this lagering since I brewed it. The tan has faded, the beard has grown out a little bit, and I'm freezing my bollocks off in the garage now. So yeah, it's been sitting in the keg for quite a while. It seems to have definitely benefited from that in terms of clarity. I'm really pleased with how this beer is presenting, but more importantly, let's get into what it's delivering on the aroma and flavour. So as per usual, I'll bring in the guys from the Hop Edition to give a blind tasting and feedback on this beer, but I'll just give you my thoughts on it first, and then we'll look at that data and the graphs that are presented in terms of aroma and flavour. So what do we get from this beer? On the aroma, straight away, it's just a very classic kind of noble kind of lager aromatic to it. There is definitely floral notes there. There's herbal kind of spicy element to it. Unsurprisingly, it is quite reminiscent of beers that are hopped with Saazer. So it's got that kind of classic sort of Pilsner, maybe more of a kind of Czech Pilsner aromatic to it. But you could probably, think this is maybe any kind of noble hop. It's got some German kind of aromas in there as well, in terms of that kind of like meadow, fresh, kind of grassy, floral aroma there. And yeah, I think just a little bit of a citrus note too. So there is some citrusy lemon rind kind of aroma coming off of this, which again brings me back to the kind of Saazer origin for this hop. I think there's a little bit of that coming through too. So aroma wise, it's really nice. You've got a nice base of kind of crisp, malty, sweet Pilsner malt underneath that. It smells like a really smashable lager. So on that note, decent bit of bitterness on the beer, fairly hop forward. It's not massively hoppy, but it's a style of beer that is a good balance between the malt and hop. So there's still a good hop presence to it, and it's more of the same, to be honest. I've got more of that floral character. I think that's probably what you pick up on first. Definitely herbal, spicy notes. Not as spicy as a kind of Tettnang or something like that, some of the more spicy German varieties, but there's a little bit of spiciness in there. A little bit of a grassy note again. But yeah, floral, kind of meadow-like flavour. Nothing that's hugely like one dominant flavour coming forwards. It is a very sort of general, noble kind of hop flavour to it. But definitely for me leans towards Saazer. I mean, I know that I'm kind of guided towards that by knowing the origin of the hop and what's gone into this particular beer. But I feel like people will recognise this as a variety that's derived from Saazer. So it's very nice. It's not something that for me is going to, sort of be radically different. It's classic noble hop flavour. It's got that Saazer character to it, but it's delivering it really well. So, I mean, it's definitely a good option for me. If you want to just change things up a little bit, go for something different. I think it is a little bit cheaper than Saazer as well. So that's obviously a advantage to potentially using this variety as well. But if you're looking for classic noble hop flavour and aroma with these sorts of beers, your Pilsners and pale lagers, whatever, Czech styles it would work well in. It's got to be a good shout to go for this. So let's see what the guys from the Hop Edition think about it, and then we'll look at the data that's collated from that and see if it does kind of generally line up with my thoughts on this beer, bearing in mind that I'm not tasting it blind. Right, so we are doing the latest lager hop tester, and while you guys get a little bit of a idea of what you're getting aroma and flavour wise, and loading up the sheet to enter in your scores for various things, I'll give you a little bit of context for the beer. So
I'll be honest, Tricky, I'd rather you stop giving us homework.
Well, we've got to quantify these results, Chris, in the best scientific manner that we can. Okay. So when you're scoring this, obviously try and do it in the context of it being a beer that isn't dry hopped. So that may affect your judgment of how potent the aroma from the hops is and all that sort of thing.
I think when I first smelt it, I went, it smells lagery.
Yeah.
But you see, it'll just be smells lagery, and then he'll just be wanting us to guess it was Sapphire or whatever it is you're using these days, innit?
I'm getting a weird hint of rhubarb.
No, I'm
Rhubarb.
Genuinely rhubarb.
Chris out of left field with the rhubarb.
What vape have you got in front of you, Chris?
I'm getting 10-inch lager vibes.
This is a good question.
Limeberry.
Yes, just straight Magnum.
Just straight Magnum.
I mean, I'm getting
Surprise!
No, the predominant aroma is floral.
Yeah.
Predominant.
Spicy. Are you getting a spice?
A little bit spice.
Not so much.
I did get quite like a citrus lemon thing. I think Chucky's just fucking with us, and he's just made a lager
With maple fruit?
Hallertau milk fruit, and he's just messing with us. For
I mean,
fun.
would
No.
I be that devious?
No.
I
This will be a check. It'll be a check sort of tester sort of thing, a new check hop that they're trying to bring out sort of thing. I bet you.
You think?
Yeah, it's got a kind of Saazer. Do you know, feel like a kind of Saazer thing to it?
I'm getting a weird kind of sharp, almost tart, citrusy thing, but it's very mellow. Without that dry hop, it's very mellow. I'm going to agree with Owen that I think I'm picking rhubarb out as the sharpness, and he's getting kind of a lemony. That's almost like a hint of citrus.
Yeah,
like a little hint. Is anyone else getting like a little licorice vibe on the aroma?
Have you been eating Bassett's all sorts?
I haven't picked that up myself, I must say. Bertie Bassett is in the mix.
It's kind of like I think it's like a Saazer Tetnang type vibes.
Is it like Bobek or something?
It's very German.
Yeah, German Czech, kind of that floral, kind of meadow, kind of
European.
malty thing that I'm getting. But I am, to be fair, the only overriding aroma that I'm getting is alpine meadow. It's just floral. It's like flowers. It's, it's midsummer on the side of fucking the Alpe d'Huez.
I think it is a noble type hop.
A noble derivative.
Yeah, so it's like it's got to be a pretty classic hop choice for a lager. It's a very lagerish hop.
It's a lagery lager hop.
It's a lagery lager hop.
Basic.
On the flavour, definitely a bit more like herbal.
Yeah.
A bit more herbaceous. You don't tend to get too much herbal on the aroma.
No, it's
I'm not really getting pine or woody. I'm not getting berry. Hop
citrus.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe a lemony.
I do, yeah. I agree with the lemony thing. I think that's something that I've generally picked up as I've been drinking this beer quite a bit.
It's very basic, though. It's not in your face.
Yeah, it's like a hint of lemon zest almost, isn't it? Rather than a outright. I think you get a lot more of the herbal spiciness on the flavour, but it's still kind of sitting there with a bit of lemon for me.
I'm going to have to put a tick in like fruity berry kind of thing, because I'm definitely getting some of that.
You're not the first person, because I've actually given this beer to a few others who've also scored it, and you're not the first person that has mentioned berry.
Really?
Like fruity berry.
I don't get it personally, but yeah, other people have said that. So
I'm getting no pine off this, which means it's not American.
No.
There is a lot more of that herbal character as you're drinking it, though. It contributes to that whole fucking alpine meadow thing.
yeah, I think that's when you go like, might be noble with the flavour.
Yeah. What's the
Start
closest
guessing.
hop? Would you say that's like
I'd say
Alta
this
Metal
is-
Fruit?
Well, you mentioned Saazer before, didn't you, Andy? I think.
Yeah. I was
would-
thinking it's like a Saazer Tetnang cross.
It's not pearl. It's not got the right flavour profile for pearl.
It's like a slightly sweeter Saazer thing. I don't know.
That's the malt though, because it's got floor malted in it.
Yeah, it's
I honestly couldn't pick this one out of the lineup, not
So-
with the way it's been hopped.
I guess everyone's sort of leaning towards European, but specific country you think it might be from?
Check.
Czech.
Um,
Czech or German, but
Czech or German, yeah.
It's got that
Okay.
Styrian Goldings kind
basically it'll
of
be from
vibe.
France.
Yeah. It'll be Belgian. Go on then.
Is it Kazbek?
It's not Kazbek, but it's not a bad guess. Any other guesses for specific varieties before I
Styrian
reveal
Goldings.
Styrian Goldings?
All right, give us a hint.
Wait.
Is
Yes,
it
Czech.
So it is European, but it's not Czech or German.
Is it English?
It's French.
No.
Is it Italian?
Continental. No.
Is it Portuguese?
No.
Is it French?
Is it Irish?
It is not French. No.
Huh.
I have no idea then.
So, what you have been drinking is Lubelski, which is a Polish hop.
Really?
And interestingly, because of the mention of Saazer, it is basically Saazer that was replanted in Poland and has been there for quite a long time and essentially developed into a kind of Polish landrace variety, but it is from, Saazer. So it's not exactly the same as Saazer, but that's its direct heritage.
It's SARS with Polish terroir.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there we go. A few thoughts from the guys at the Hop Edition there. Make sure you go and check out the podcast at the link that I'll put in the description. Now, on to the results. So as I said, I've collated the feedback from the guys at the Hop Edition. You'll probably have realised from the video that there was a general kind of consensus that, yes, it's very much noble flavours coming from this hop and definitely some Saazer character to it. When we look at the results from the little survey that I've done, I did blow up the graph a little bit on this just to make it a little bit clearer what the results were. So bear in mind, this is out of 10, but the maximum value that you can see on the radar graph is up to 6 at the moment. So it's just to make that a little bit clearer. But the flavours that are shown were not quite as prominent as maybe that graph would indicate as you look at it at first. So floral, unsurprising, coming up quite big on the aroma. It was the first thing that seemed to be picked out by a lot of people tasting this beer. That was also fairly prominent in the flavour. Not so much as on the aroma, but still one of the stronger notes that people picked up from the flavour. We also got aroma-wise citrus coming in just behind that, and spicy herbal notes. So herbal, spicy, floral, citrus were probably the ones that were most prominent for the tasters, with a little bit of earthy and grassy notes, and a few people picked out berry on this as well. I didn't personally really get the berry flavours, but there was more than one person that picked up on that. So bearing in mind some of the descriptors that are there from the hop producers themselves, it's, I guess, not surprising that some people might have got some other flavour characteristics and aroma characteristics off of this one. Looking at the general scores, again, I think the results are skewed a little bit by the fact that the beer is not hopped in the same way as the other beers that I've done for hop testers. So it's very much on the hot side, nothing in the dry hop, and it's more of a lager-like schedule to it, so not pushing everything into the whirlpool and the dry hop. That said, it is a noble variety, so it's not going to be hugely, you wouldn't expect to be hugely impactful in terms of flavour and aroma scores. That said, it still scored 5.375 overall for flavour impact or flavour intensity, and a 4.625 on the aroma intensity. So probably about where you would expect for this type of hop in terms of a slightly more subtle kind of traditional lager hop variety. The overall score in terms of how people like the hop was 6.625, which again, pretty good score considering it's a sort of general purpose kind of lager noble style variety. So there we go. That is Lubelski, aka Lublin. There's a few other names that it goes by, but Lubelski, Lublin, that sort of thing. a good alternative option perhaps for Saazer particularly, but a good general purpose hops where you want to get in some classic kind of noble flavour into your lagers or pale beers. So there we go. Let me know if you've used this hop or similar varieties and what you think about it. And yeah, get chatting in the comments. Cheers, guys.
I'm the dude. So that's what you call me, you know? That or his dudeness or duder or, you know, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.